Stuart's here to talk to us about his piece on narco wars in Ecuador.
In Ecuador. It all started a few weeks ago now, and it's slightly complicated, but basically a gang leader who's known as Fito was discovered to have escaped prison. They didn't actually notice he had gone, which sort of says a lot about the prison system. The new President Noboa, decided to basically launch a crackdown against the gangs. They reacted by putting car bombs on the streets, general insurrection and riots in prison, etc.
Did they also attack a TV station?
Attacked at a TV station. There's a presenter, I think he was on Sky News a couple of weeks ago, was held at gunpoint. So the idea was to sort of say, we are the gangs, you're not going to take away our business. Now that's been doubled down upon. There's army, the police, the Navy, Marines are all on the streets now trying to take control back from the gangs. They're making huge numbers of arrests. And already they're saying that the crime levels, the incidents have dropped off a cliff. So it is working. The real question, though, is it sustainable forever? It's really hard to imagine.
OK, and you were on a raid, weren't you?
We were on a series of raids, I think, for 2 weeks. I genuinely think we were doing at least two a day and night. And as I said, most of the most obvious gang members have actually been put into prison, but they're still picking up others. The problem, I think, for the president and for the country is sustaining this for a long time. They're estimating the budget for this operation is about $800 million. But there are two Mexican cartels who use Ecuador for the transport of their drugs. And those two cartels are not used to losing. They control the Mexican economy to a degree. They control virtually every element of society in Mexico. And I think the problem for Ecuador is that they start sending their own men down to put the business back in, and that will be very, very violent.
So what's your take? What do you think?
I think in the short term, I mean, El Salvador's doing a very similar thing. 2% of the population of El Salvador has been put in jail. He's going the similar way. If you can sustain it and he stays alive, they might do it. But it's just whether these cartels decide to actually up the ante in the war. And their resources are limitless and their ruthlessness is
one of the prosecutors, I think I'm right in saying, who was investigating what happened at the TV station?
Yep.
Shot dead? Shot dead.
Political opponents of the gangs have been shot dead in the last elections as well. So that's why, actually, the president has redesignated gang crime as actual terrorism. And the genius of that is it means that his security forces can act now with impunity because they're against terrorists, and they can lock up everyone. And as the police said to me, we can now shoot them before they shoot at us. So, if you're involved, if you live in a crime area, life at the moment is very dangerous.
We understand what the president's trying to do, but he needs to take the country with him in order to be able to achieve that. And certainly that raid, the one that we saw that you were on, it's causing a lot of angst.
Yes, and the police officer who was on that raid explained to us that they didn't used to go to these areas. The people who were there were not used to seeing the police and the army carrying out these raids. They're just used to the streets being controlled by the gangs. And often you find in these very poor neighbourhoods that the gangs are sort of almost have a Robin Hood feel about them, and they employ an awful lot of people. So the key to this is getting the gang leaders, catching them. They then have to try and make these very poor areas better and get work, because at the moment the biggest employers are the gangs through the cartels. That's going to be the big key. You've got to make life inside the barrio better for ordinary people than what is being offered by the gangs.
What was the mood when you were there?
People were angry in those areas, but I can assure you, outside of the areas where they're obviously seeing the military coming in daily, which is scary for the children and so on. Outside of those areas, I was with the governor of one of the seaside towns, and he was like a rock star. They absolutely loved him because he is seen to be the person, he's a political appointee, the person who's come in and taken away crime. And Esmeraldas is the city. Its hotels were empty, its restaurants were shut, the odd bar would be open, and nobody was on the beach because it was simply too dangerous. And now that's completely changed, and there was an amazing sort of summer atmosphere while we were there. Again, all of these people know there's a price on their head, from the president to the governor and virtually everyone involved in anything to do with taking on the gangs. But as I say, at the moment, this is a success story. The question is going to be how long and is it sustainable?
OK. For now, Stuart, thanks very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Of course, you can see more of Stuart's reports online and indeed throughout the day here on Sky News.